Alright, so the days are getting longer. It doesn't get anywhere near freezing at night. So I've made the decision that I'm going to plant the 2022 giant pumpkin seeds. It is currently May 18th. And I'm making the decision to plant them right now instead of planting them later, because in the past I've planted them too early, and either the cold from the cold nights will hurt them, or I'll have a giant pumpkin in late August when it's still hot and humid and it'll rot. So I think my decision to plant them a little bit later this year will work out. Right here, I live next to a church, so that's what you're hearing. Right here I have the seeds. As you can see, they're pretty huge for pumpkin seeds. They're each about the size of your thumb. So before I plant them, oh, and by the way, I'm going to be planting them in little cups like that are clear. And the idea behind that is that I can see how deep the roots are going to see when I have to transplant them into the ground. So before I plant the seeds, what I'm going to have to do, and what a lot of people do, that I've never done before, is sand down the sides of the seeds. And the reason that you do that is, you've seen how huge the seeds are. The skins of them are super thick. And what can happen is, when the plant starts sprouting, they can kind of hang on to the budding leaves and prevent them from opening. And I've seen that cause issues before, so I'm going to try the sanding technique and see if that works. So, just to give you an idea, giant seed, sand it a little bit. I'm ASMRing you to sleep right now. Please wake up. The video's not over. Alright, yeah. So, got a nice little rough edge on there. I'm going to come back when I've done all 10 seeds. Alright, so all the seeds are sanded down just a little bit, not a ton. And I'm going to start planting them. I have 10 seeds and hopefully 10 cups. But as I'm doing this, I just want to give a little timeline outline so that you know what to expect when it comes to the amount of time that this is going to take. So it is mid-May currently. Oh, also I'm planting them with the pointy tip downwards. That's where the first taproot is going to come out of. And the two first leaves, which are called caudal leaves, are going to come out of the top. So for the timeline, it's mid-May right now. I'm planting these. They usually take, if it's warm, a week to germinate and sprout out of the ground. After that, I'm going to transplant them into the ground ASAP. You want to acclimate them to outdoor soil, outdoor weather, cooler climate, or cooler nights rather. So it'll probably just grow as a plant without a pumpkin on it for, we'll say, from June, July, probably honestly to early August. So for months, there's not going to be a pumpkin on it. It's just going to be a giant plant. I'm so unfocused, I forgot if I even put a seed in this one. That's me for you. Alright, so probably early August, we're going to see pollination and a pumpkin starting to grow. Keep in mind, by this time, the plant is going to be absolutely massive. It's going to be probably the largest, garden vegetable plant you've ever seen. I have a 30 by 30 foot plot out back. It's going to fill up that entire plot if everything goes to plan. plus some. I'm gonna have to trim the vines at the end to keep it from continuing to grow. So, yeah, we're gonna get a pumpkin probably around early August. Then the growth is going to really start. That's where, you know, it's crunch time or whatever you want to say. It's gonna grow very quick. My goal this year is about 1,000 pounds. So, you know, you do the math. We got to get to 1,000 pounds in August, September. 25 pounds a day or something. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. It's 25 pounds a day. But the idea is it's a massive amount of weight that it has to gain per day. Uh-oh. I messed that one up a little bit. Watch that one grow to be the biggest and most beautiful one. I kind of want to mark this in some way now. I have a Q-tip that I use to clean off the camera lens, so I'm going to poke it in here. This is going to be the one that I hurt a little bit, and maybe it's going to end up being the biggest, most beautiful one. We'll see. Alright, the final seed. Was I still talking about the timeline? Probably. Yeah, we got a giant pumpkin. It's growing massively and it's growing quickly. So you can see my beautiful mustache. It's going to be growing very quickly. And ideally we're going to have a giant pumpkin in mid-October. Because the goal is to submit it into the fair, into my local fair. We do not want a pumpkin early, because like I said earlier, if it's still warm outside, it's going to rot so quickly, you know, your head will spin. And, yeah. Much more to come. I'm going to water these real quick, so I'll be back. Alright, I'm back. So, I'm going to water the pumpkins, and I have a couple questions that I guess I can very quickly go over. In later videos, I'm going to go over them much more thoroughly. The first question people always ask me is why grow a giant pumpkin? You don't see, you know, too many people doing that, especially young men. It's an old man's game, usually a retirement game like golf. But honestly, I have no idea. The origin of it is I used to live in San Diego in 2019. And I really missed fall in New England where I live. And I was like, man, when I go back there, I'm gonna grow a giant pumpkin. And then I did. I'll try to put up the picture here of the pumpkins that I've grown. It's only 411 pounds, but you know, I'm pretty proud of it. So, yeah, that was the first decision that I kind of made about it. And as for a deeper reason, I have no idea. I think I might just be a freak, and I wouldn't have it any other way, to be honest with you. There's just something satisfying about, I don't know, creating something. I honestly have no idea. I would have to get real philosophical about it, and nobody wants to hear that. Let's see. What are my goals once it's done? That's the second question. Or basically, what are you going to do with it once you have a giant pumpkin in your yard? That's the second question people always ask. Oh, spilled that one a little bit. And I'm going to answer that with, I don't know. That's part of why I'm making these videos. If you live in central Connecticut and you have a forklift, I'll pay you what you want to help me move this thing to the fair. Okay, I don't know what the running rate is for a forklift operator for hire, but we'll make it work. So if you live in central Connecticut, comment on this video, you know, because otherwise, I really don't know. 1,000 pounds is a little too heavy to do what I did last time, where we rolled it onto a tarp and then greased the bottom with cooking oil and then dragged it. We went through about like $60 worth of tarps because we kept tearing them. So we can't do that this time. Unless we get like a horse and some industrial grade grease or something. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do with it. Oh yeah, source for the seeds. You may be wondering, where do you get giant pumpkin seeds? Or maybe you think you've seen them at Home Depot or something, right? You've seen, oh, giant pumpkin seeds for $2 or whatever. Those aren't really giant pumpkin seeds in the way these are. So these are from specifically bred giant pumpkin seeds. It's like the difference between a guy who is, 6 foot and kind of athletic versus a guy who, Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's 7 foot tall and hyper athletic. These are the latter. These come from stock that are, 2,000 plus pounds, basically. That's why they're all the size of a man's thumb. So yeah, the price of these, they were each, so I got 10 seeds and they were $60. So it's $6 a seed. I can do that math. We did a broad timeline. Vine burying, that's a kind of interesting thing that I'm definitely going to go over later. But basically, if you bury your vines, not your leaves or anything of the plant, you can double the amount of roots in your root system, which, is like a crazy advantage. And it also can protect the plant from windstorms. It'll keep it from getting ripped out of the ground or damaged. Speaking of damaged, here's the little imperfect one that I'm rooting for big time. What was I saying? Vine burying, yeah, we said that. Oh, the general shape of this plant. So this grows along the ground. I'm sure you've maybe seen a pumpkin plant before. This grows along the ground, and it grows very long and wide, basically. And obviously this more so than any other type of pumpkin or squash. They're all in the same family. Pumpkin, squash, watermelon, cucumbers, they're cucurbits. So it grows in the pattern of a Christmas tree, basically. And you can kind of train the vines where you want them to go. So I'm basically going to let it go naturally, but I am going to, aim it into more of a nice shape. So that is vine training and burying. Alright, one or two more things we'll say. Pollination. So a pumpkin plant, I guess, is a hermaphrodite, which means it has male and female biological organs, which on a plant are its flowers. So basically there's male flowers and female flowers. You take a male flower and you put it into the female flower. Hopefully that doesn't get taken off YouTube. And it basically is pumpkin sex, essentially. You're just doing it for the plant instead of having a bee do it. And it can pollinate itself, which is good. You don't have to have two giant pumpkin plants. So yeah, that's how the pollination works. The female flowers, you'll see later, they have a little tiny baby pumpkin that's only about this big, and then a flower coming off of them. And the male flowers, they're long and skinny, and they don't have a little mini pumpkin on them. So you will see all that later, probably in mid-July, I'd say, if I had to guess when there was going to start to be flowers. And then finally, we got 2 or 3 more to water. I wanted to go over quickly the enemies of the pumpkin. And there are many. This thing is a biological anomaly, okay? This giant pumpkin, it's a biological weird thing. It shouldn't exist. So there are many things that want to kill it, eat it. Basically, entropy just wants to destroy it. Just time, you let it sit there, it shouldn't exist, really. So there are many enemies that want to destroy the pumpkin. From least bad to worst, least bad is, let's say, non-perfect temperatures, I guess we'll say. So anything outside of the range from 60 to 85, more like 55 to 85. Obviously the plant does not like cold weather. No plant really likes cold weather. And then if it gets too hot, the plant will wilt like spinach when you cook it. And that's not very good for it either, because fungus can start growing on it, which is like a powdery white stuff on it. It's called powdery mildew. So inclement weather is bad, obviously. Second, I think I said, oh no, groundhogs. All right, so groundhogs, they are containable. As long as you contain them, they're not too bad. What you can do, and what I do, is build a fence around my little patch. And I also set up the humane have-a-heart traps. I'm not killing a groundhog or whatever I said, hedgehog. They're groundhogs, not hedgehogs. Don't worry, guys. They all go free into the state forest near my house. I'm not hurting any little mammals. But they do love to eat the pumpkin plant, specifically the pumpkin itself and the ends of the vines, which are the two most important parts of the plant, because all the growth happens at the end of the vine. All right, there's our last watering, so I'll go over the enemies very quickly. It's starting to get dark. Groundhogs, so I have a heart trap. If we see any up here, we're gonna deal with them humanely. Third, I hate to even say it out loud, cucumber beetles. They're striped and spotted cucumber beetles, and they are evil little bugs. Normally I like bugs, I'm a big fan of bugs, but they eat the ends of the pumpkin's vines, and worse than that, they spread crazy diseases. They're like, I don't know, mosquitoes of the pumpkin world, where they spread these super deadly diseases. The first time I tried to grow a pumpkin, I think that's what killed it. The plant died in 2 or 3 days. It was very bad. So what we're gonna do to avoid that, I have these sticky traps that have cucumber beetle like pheromones in them, and they work amazingly well. The cucumber beetles, they just go right to it. It smells like what are the lollipops that have Tootsie Rolls in them? Tootsie Pops? They smell like Tootsie Pops for some reason, and they work insanely well. I don't like using pesticides, but if we have to, I'm gonna use a little bit of this stuff called Carbaryl, which it's too effective. That's why I don't like using it, because it can also kill bees, which I don't want to kill bees, obviously. They are very nice little creatures. They pollinate your plant if you want them to do that. So we're gonna either not use that or only use that if it's an absolute emergency. And the fourth and final worst enemy of the pumpkin that, you know, it's not just bad, it's game over basically if this happens. So, you know, if this happens in central Connecticut, you're probably not gonna see any more videos coming out of me. Major windstorms. I'm gonna try to avoid that by burying the vines this time. But what happens is, from the trees and sometimes even hail, little projectiles come down and are basically shredding the plant. It's very bad. It's basically the end of the line if that happens. So as long as we can avoid that, everything else is recoverable. I believe that that's gonna be it for this video. What I'm gonna do with these guys is leave them in a warm, sunny spot. Honestly, it's warm enough at night that I could just leave them outside all day. So I'll probably do that, because you want to acclimate them to the outdoors. Otherwise, they get kind of weak, and it's called hardening. You want to harden them to the outdoor conditions. And yeah, so I think I'm going to do that. And I'll come back with another video once we see some growth or are ready to transplant. So thank you for watching.